Welcome to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? And I mean not just a few $1,000s but a life-altering, jaw-dropping fortune tied to a coin so ordinary that millions of people have handled it without a second thought, because today we are diving into the mysterious and almost unbelievable story of the 2001 P 5-cent coin from the United States. A coin that looks like any other nickel yet carries whispers in the collector world of being worth as much as $70 million under the right conditions. And before you brush this off as hype, you need to understand that this is one of those stories where history, minting quirks, and rare anomalies collide in a way that almost feels unreal, because within the first few minutes of discovering this coin's potential, collectors realized that certain ultra-rare versions of the 2001 P Jefferson nickel could command prices that defy logic, with top-end estimated values reaching up to $70 million in extreme cases involving pristine condition, ultra-rare mint errors, and undocumented variations. And trust me, you are going to want to stick around till the very end, because the next coins we will uncover later in this series get even more shocking, even more mysterious, and even more unbelievable in ways you won't expect. So don't go anywhere, because this is just the beginning of a journey that might completely change how you look at the coins in your pocket right now. Now let's break down why the 2001 P 5-cent coin has become such a legend among collectors, starting with its background. Minted in Philadelphia as part of the long-running Jefferson Nickel series, this coin was produced in massive quantities, millions upon millions flooding into circulation, which is exactly why most people would never suspect that something so common could hide such extraordinary value. But here's where things start to get interesting, because during the minting process in 2001, there were reports of subtle die variations, misalignments, and pressure inconsistencies that created a handful of coins with microscopic yet critical differences, and these differences are what separate an ordinary nickel worth 5 cents from one that could potentially change your life forever. One of the most talked about anomalies is a rare die error that caused a slight doubling effect on certain inscriptions, nearly invisible to the untrained eye but instantly recognizable to seasoned collectors, and when combined with a flawless mint state condition, meaning the coin has never been circulated and retains its original luster, the value skyrockets into a realm that feels almost fictional. And then there are rumors of an even rarer variation, an experimental strike using slightly altered metal composition during a transitional testing phase at the mint. Something that was never officially documented but has been whispered about in collector circles for years, and if such a coin were ever verified and brought to auction, experts believe it could reach astronomical figures. Which is exactly why stories of the 2001 P nickel have spread like wildfire among enthusiasts, fueling a modern treasure hunt where people are digging through jars, drawers, and forgotten collections hoping to strike gold with what appears to be a simple nickel. And what makes this even more fascinating is the psychology behind it, because unlike ancient coins locked away in museums, this is a coin that could realistically still be out there in circulation, meaning anyone, literally anyone, could stumble upon it without even realizing what they're holding. And that's where the real suspense comes in, because imagine the number of these rare variants that may have already slipped through people's fingers, spent at stores, dropped into vending machines, or lost forever, all because they looked too ordinary to matter. And yet collectors who know what to look for are paying extreme attention to details like the sharpness of Monticello on the reverse, the clarity of Jefferson's profile, the presence of doubling on lettering, and even the tiniest imperfections that could signal something extraordinary. And auction history, while scarce for this exact coin at such extreme values, has shown time and time again that when a truly unique piece surfaces, the market reacts in explosive ways, with bidders competing fiercely to own a piece of numismatic history, and that's exactly what drives the legend of this coin forward, the idea that somewhere out there is a version of the 2001 P 5-cent coin so rare, so perfect, and so historically significant that it could command a price tag reaching into tens of millions. And this isn't just about money, it's about the thrill of discovery, the possibility that something overlooked could hold unimaginable worth, and the realization that history doesn't always sit behind glass cases. Sometimes it jingles quietly in your pocket waiting to be noticed, and if you're thinking about checking your coins right now, you absolutely should, because this could be sitting unnoticed in your house, hidden in plain sight among everyday change, and while you're doing that, keep in mind that what we're about to explore next will push this idea even further, because the next coin in this journey carries a story that's even more unexpected, even more intense, and filled with twists that most collectors never see coming. So stay with me, because if you thought this 2001 P nickel was unbelievable, what's coming next might just leave you completely speechless, and trust me, you do not want to miss it. Next coin takes us into a story that feels even more unreal, because most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. And I'm talking about a US coin that has been whispered about in collector circles as reaching values as high as $60 million under the most extraordinary conditions, a coin so deceptively normal that even seasoned collectors have overlooked it at first glance. And yet when the truth behind its rarity begins to unfold, it turns into one of the most shocking discoveries in modern numismatics, because early reports from private auctions and elite collector trade suggest that the rarest known examples tied to this category of U.S. coinage have been valued at up to $60 million, not because of gold or silver content, but because of a perfect storm of historical timing, mint anomalies, and near mythical rarity. And if you think that sounds unbelievable, just wait, because later in this journey there are even more coins with stories so wild they'll make this one feel almost normal, so make sure you stay locked in all the way to the end, because each step only gets crazier from here. Now let's unpack what makes this particular US coin so insanely valuable, starting with its origin, because unlike older coins that owe their worth to age alone, this one's story is rooted in a unique period of mint experimentation and transitional production where small changes in dyes, pressure, and even metal sourcing created a handful of anomalies that were never meant to leave the mint, yet somehow a few did, slipping quietly into circulation where they blended in with millions of ordinary coins, and that's exactly why this coin has become such a legend. Because identifying it requires not just luck but an almost forensic level of attention to detail. Collectors who have studied these coins talk about extremely subtle differences. Things like unusual strike sharpness, faint doubling in specific areas, micro-level spacing inconsistencies in the lettering, and in some rumored cases, a slight variation in weight that hints at an experimental composition. And while most people would never notice these traits, to a trained eye they are the fingerprints of something extraordinary, something that shouldn't exist outside the walls of the mint, and that's where the real excitement begins. Because when one of these rare variants is discovered in near perfect condition, meaning it has never been worn down by circulation and still carries its original mint brilliance, the value doesn't just increase, it explodes into a range that feels almost fictional, and that's exactly why collectors are willing to pay staggering amounts for the chance to own one, because in the world of rare coins, uniqueness is everything, and this coin represents a level of uniqueness that borders on legendary status. There are even stories circulating within the community about a single example that surfaced briefly in a private collection, examined by experts who were stunned by its characteristics, only for it to disappear from public view again, fueling speculation and driving its perceived value even higher, and whether or not those stories are fully verified, they add to the mystique that surrounds this coin, turning it into something more than just currency. It becomes a piece of hidden history, a puzzle waiting to be solved, and a reminder that even in a modern world dominated by digital transactions, physical coins can still hold secrets that no one has fully uncovered. And here's the part that really makes you stop and think, because just like the last coin we talked about, this one could still be out there, sitting unnoticed in a jar, tucked away in an old wallet, or mixed into everyday change, passed from hand to hand without anyone realizing what it truly is. And that's why this story hits differently, because it's not about something locked away in a museum or owned by a billionaire collector. It's about the possibility that ordinary people could stumble upon something extraordinary without even trying, and that's what keeps the hunt alive. That's what keeps collectors searching, and that's what makes stories like this so addictive, because the next time you get change back from a purchase, you might look at those coins a little differently, wondering if one of them could be the one that changes everything. And if you're already feeling that curiosity building, don't ignore it, because what we're about to dive into next will take that feeling and amplify it even further, with another coin that pushes the boundaries of rarity and value in ways that almost don't make sense. So stick with me, because if you thought this $60 million mystery was intense, the next coin is on a completely different level altogether.